reading from St. Luke's Gospel, chapter 23, from verse 33 through to the end of 47. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Having said this, he breathed his last. And when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, "Certainly this man was innocent." Raymond, a well-known passage,
Yes,
and one that we read every year, with some wonderful sayings, but also full of all that anti-Jesus stuff that's there, isn't it?
well, I would say reading this that what's happening to Jesus brings out the best and the worst in people.
It's there, isn't it?
It's
Very
there.
starkly.
Yeah. On the one hand, you've got people who are sort of mocking and understand salvation as him by some sort of miraculous means coming down from the cross. And then on the other hand, you've got the centurion and one of the thieves who are convinced that he's innocent on the charges. But I think there's a deeper theme as to the fact that Jesus not only sees himself totally in the care of God, into your hands,
yeah.
but it also is sort of caring for all the people around him, even in these circumstances.
The thief on the cross, particularly, and the people who the Father forgive.
Father forgive.
Yeah.
And this is where what the passage understands by salvation is coming out in this person who totally trusts in God and totally cares for other people and who is innocent of the charges against him. And a lot of people can't see that because they've got all kinds of sort of mental blockages about what...
I mean, as the people in the passage have, with the leaders who are scoffing him and the soldiers, they all join in, don't they? It's really quite frightening. I'm always... the contrast between the crowd of Palm Sunday and the crowd of Golgotha is really terrifying, because it's the same crowd of people, and how we can change so easily and so quickly. That really is very terrifying, I think.
Well, it's partly built on a lot of deep misunderstandings of what Jesus is about, and
do you want to unpack that a bit?
Yeah, right.
That's quite a big phrase, deep misunderstandings of what Jesus is on about.
Well, I would say that on the one hand there are people who see him as a criminal, and there are people who feel threatened by Jesus, whether they're religious authorities or military authorities or civil authorities. So there's all this stuff about Jesus is the King of the Jews, and they're saying, well, he doesn't look much like a king because he's being crucified like a slave. So that's the ground for mockery. And they also think that anybody who's in the business of salvation should be able to get himself out of a sort of be a kind of Houdini and get out of a bind like this.
And the assumption is that if he do that, then we'll all follow.
We'll all follow,
which
yes.
of course just doesn't work.
Then he'd be a stuntman.
He'd be a stuntman, yeah, which is not.
But what he's trying to get across, which they can't see, is this whole thing about basic trust in God and a kind of unfailing care for other people, no matter what's happening for you. I mean, his whole life is narrowing down to point zero, but the ability to care is expanding.
Even as he dies.
As he dies, yes.